Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Ohio Valley Real Estate Report. My name is Johnny Kazemko, as always, with my esteemed partner, Scott Connors.
Well, not always. Sometimes you do this with other people.
Well, yeah, every so often. But
I'm
anyways,
never far away, though.
yeah. And today we are talking about what's our topic here?
We're going to hit the 5 things to consider when choosing a brokerage.
The top 5 things to consider when choosing a brokerage. So if you were thinking of joining a career in real estate, here's everything that you should be asking and knowing, prior to committing.
Yeah, so before we even get to the list, I think you and I would both agree that, yes, you should do it.
Yeah.
We absolutely love what we do. It's a fantastic life. There's nothing like it, in my opinion.
Not at all. I get to work from, basically get to pick my schedule. It's such a grind to get to where you have to be, but once you're there, and I think of most adults, I think we had this conversation off camera, but most adults, I feel they treat real estate like kids treat T-Rex. Because it's this mythical creature. It's, this kind of thing that you gravitate to it. You can't not look at it. Almost every adult that I've ever talked to has always inquired about, what it's like or how do you even get started. So,
Well, we're 45 seconds in. We're already off topic.
well, that's me.
And me. All right. So 5 things. What we believe are the top 5 things to consider when choosing a brokerage. Number 1, what is their track record? And we're going to dive into each of these in more detail later on. So the top 5 things to consider when choosing a brokerage. Number 1, what is their track record? Number 2, what kind of ongoing training, what kind of commitment do they have to that? Number 3, what kind of support staff are you going to get? Number 4, what kind of tools are they offering as far as technology, websites, and so on? And then number 5, let's talk about commission. And so we're going to dive into each one of those in more depth, but you get those 5 things right, and you're probably in the right place.
Yeah, and to be honest, if you're not asking some of these questions, I have to question your own ambition to begin with, because these are important things to consider. It's not just you're run of the mill, I'm going to put in a job application and just go to work and get started. This is a very competitive business. And
to say the least.
You get back what you put in. So if you're not asking these, you need to.
Sure. And I think you would agree with this. When we started, and most people starting, they don't know what they don't know, right? And that's what we're trying to address in this specific podcast.
Yeah,
we're going to tell you the questions to ask that you don't even know you should be asking.
Correct.
So, and that's based on our experience. You've been with 2 different brokerages. I've been here the whole time. You didn't start here, but we got you here as quickly as we could.
Yep. Thanks to you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Anyway. So I'll take the first one. Let's talk track record. There have been a ton of new brokerages open up in the last couple of years. There are a lot of sort of startups, innovative business models. Some of them are doing great, some are not. I feel like if you're going to commit your life to this career and it becomes your livelihood, it makes sense to start with someone that has a strong track record. Our specific company, one of the things that drew me to Harvey Goodman is 60 years now of being a top brokerage, the top brokerage for most of those years in the Ohio Valley. I wouldn't be anywhere else. Based on track record, there's no question.
Yeah, and coming from someone who's actually sat in different offices and not to belittle any particular office or anything there, but it is a different dynamic.
Listen, if they were any good, you wouldn't have left. No, well, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But there's a reality to some of that where I remember my first years in real estate and how tough it was getting the phone to ring and having these, and then looking around saying, man, am I going to be in this career for longer? And then when you recruited me, that's how this whole relationship began, if you remember.
I remember.
Yeah. I remember coming here and feeling relief in a sense of like, this phone is ringing. Yeah. Wait a second, there's something to do, right? So it's one of those things that it was. I am immediately part of this list.
Sure.
Not knowing what to ask up front and living example.
And in addition to the brokerage track record, I think one to dig a little deeper into that, a very specific thing to ask is who in the brokerage, as far as agents go, is successful, has been successful. You may have a brokerage that has 15, 20, 50 agents, but nobody's making any money.
Sure.
You may have a brokerage that has 3 agents and they're all big, high volume top producers. So the question is, what's your track record of developing agents from 0 to 100 or more? Meaning who has come here starting from scratch and because of the environment around them has become very successful in the business? And then are those people willing to talk with me? Get all that feedback. But if the brokerage doesn't even have that kind of success within its own walls, then those mentors aren't even there. Correct. So that's another one that I think is very important. Is ask that question. Who here's making money?
Sure.
And can I talk to them and can I do what they're doing? That was my approach when I started. I've specifically looked at the top 3, 4, 5 agents, saw what they were making, saw that they were doing really well, and I said, well, that's what I want to do. If the brokerage didn't have those people, I don't care how long they've been in business, probably not where I want to be.
Sure. Yeah. Track record speaks for itself.
It's a big deal. Yep. So why don't you take the next one? We talked about ongoing training.
Ongoing training. So this would be a little bit more in my wheelhouse. I know that we're partnering with a upcoming partnership with Calibri Real Estate, specifically on pre-licensure. So if you are actually considering a career in real estate as of now, Harvey Goodman specifically is partnering with a continuing educator, not just for your continuing education, but your pre-licensing to get started. So we are committed so much so to not just our own agents in their ongoing education, but also with new people, new recruits, to get licensed through Harvey Goodman through our partnership.
So they're not even licensed yet, and we're leaning into their education.
We care about our staff, our people so much that we want to, like you were just saying before, we want to take these new people, these pawns on the chessboard, and we want to move them all the way down the board and promote them to all these other larger pieces. And that's we're so committed to doing that type of work that I believe, as far as I know, we're the only brokerage in the Ohio Valley with a partnership like that. Does that make sense? So,
sure.
And there's a reimbursement plan that we're going to, I believe, reveal here in the next beginning of next year, the first quarter.
Coming soon.
But at any rate, the education.
And we're both very excited about that because there are some barriers to entry in this business. You've got to pay for the education. You've got to get the education. It's not easy. And to know that the company's backing you from the beginning and actually will end up reimbursing you for that expense, we hope is a pretty good draw.
If you've ever considered a career in real estate, this is by far and large the easiest path that I can imagine. This didn't exist when I was looking, and to this day I don't know of any other path. But to be able to come on and have a brokerage basically pay for your real estate license and to help you get started doesn't exist anywhere else.
It's a big deal. And once they are licensed, you and I both have a passion for teaching and leading and educating. I love sharing our knowledge. Johnny, if you don't know it, is a wealth of knowledge to the point that he wears me out sometimes. But no, the truth is he is the guru in the office in so many of the things that actually we're going to talk about here in a minute with some of the technology stuff. And we both have spent countless hours, and we love to do it, of training new and old agents. We're always looking at new tools, sharing. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've stumbled across some really, really cool stuff that we're now spreading throughout the office. So I'd like to think that we offer a pretty strong ongoing training effort.
It's high praise. It really is. No, but I agree. And that's the whole, even this podcast isn't just for recruitment, but even all the other clips. It's for the general public and the knowledge base just to spread our words. So no, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, for sure. So number 3 we listed off was support staff. I'll take the lead on this one, at least initially.
Sure.
I came here from this isn't a Harvey Goodman pitch, although it kind of feels like that. We're both just really excited about where we work and what we do.
Well, of course.
And whether it's here or somewhere else, these we believe are very important things. I came from an office environment that was toxic. And you were afraid to ask any question of anyone in the office because you're probably going to get your head taken off. And the difference in culture when I got here was just unbelievable. And the best evidence I have of that are the office staff we have. Mrs. Brune, who's an icon in St. Clairsville, still pops in the office every once in a while. She was the office manager for 50 years. Sure. It's all she ever did. Just a pillar of the community and our company. But beyond her, even kind of the general support staff, they're here 15, 20, 30, I think Beth might be 40 years now.
Sure.
That's a big deal. And that's coming from that tells you you're in a company that's family run, where they truly care about their people because they stick around.
You don't see it anywhere else.
I've never seen it anywhere else. And I just know, and as technology evolves, and we're constantly growing and trying new things, and their commitment to helping us out never goes away. And having that support, I don't know how to do real estate without that support. Why don't you talk about our team and the support we have there? Because that's specific to what we do.
One of the favorite questions that I get is from other agents in our office, because like you said, we always coach, we always teach. It's part of the relationship that you and I have always had. And agents will call me and ask, "Hey, John, how do I do this?" And it's the most simple question that I should have an immediate answer for. And my favorite answer is, I don't know. You know why? Because I've never had to do that.
Because we got people for that.
Because we get the administrative staff to do it. Now, if you want to ask me about writing contracts or what to do in these situations and things, okay, that's a little bit different. But how to upload a picture to an MLS or something, yeah, it's something that we both would struggle with.
Something tells me you could figure it out. But you're right. It's just not something we do every day because we've got the support for it.
Yeah, and I love the team that we have, not just our team, but even within the company itself, that without... sincerely, I don't think I could actually do a day-to-day basis without completely readjusting my entire life.
Sure.
And I live a very beautiful lifestyle where I get to make my own schedule, do my own thing because of the people in the support system. Our people are trained so well that they could stand on their own and go anywhere in the world that they want to, but they're also treated so well that they never want to leave.
That's right. What I love is I know that being able to count on that back-end support, there's so many situations where I'm able to serve my clients in a way that I never would be able to otherwise.
Sure.
You know, from some of Jim's research he does, where he will dig deep and I'll know everything there is to know about a particular seller, or you know. So, for example, I've got a buyer looking for commercial property, and he is just digging everywhere he can to find me possibilities. But I don't just get possibilities like, hey, what about this piece of land over here? I get, what about this piece of land over here? And here's the CEO, and here's his home address and phone number, and here's how long he's been there, and his wife's name is this, and he's got 3 kids and a dog. And it's like, he makes me look like a genius. Yeah. You know, I go into meetings with stacks of information that I wouldn't have otherwise. And it lets us really serve our clients at such a high level. It's so exciting.
Well, if we can talk about even just Jim, and just brag about him for a minute, can you talk about how your relationship and how, as far as an admin, how we even, who he was in his past?
It's crazy. He had a corporate background. He's got an MBA from an Ivy League school. And when his wife actually approached me, Rita, who also works for us now, approached me about hiring him, I kind of laughed. And I said, I'm looking for an assistant, like someone who's going to occasionally give me a cup of coffee or send a fax back then. I said, he doesn't want to do that. And she was like, yeah, he does. And so I way outkicked my coverage when I hired him. I like to joke that I hired the toughest boss I'll ever hire. Yeah. Because he just runs the ship, and his knowledge, his intelligence, his diligence with digging into stuff. We're not going to have him forever, and I don't know what we're going to do when he retires.
I don't want to think about it.
I don't either.
But yeah, as far as the question number 3, the top 3, your support staff matters.
Yeah, absolutely critical. And so to compare that to other brokerages, there are lots of brokerages that kind of have a virtual model where there is no office staff. There is no office, really. I mean, there's an office somewhere in the state, but it's nowhere you ever go. I don't believe that's a recipe for success. We just rely on it too much. So yeah, I agree.
Sure.
So next up would be the various tools the company offers, and I think we're talking about kind of hands-on, nuts and bolts technology type stuff. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, technology-wise, it can vary from just your standard website, your subdomain, anything that is helping you with your social media, because you have to be. I knew I made it in this business when I started getting, all these different robo or spam calls, which everyone gets, but I mean more aggressively, because we have to broadcast ourselves, and the tools that we have. At least with this company, even something like this podcast, this studio is here for anybody to come and use at any time. I look around and I don't see as much of the same level, if that makes sense.
It's not even close, right?
So it's important because you can only do so much with what you're given, and if you don't ask this question and you join with again, I'm not telling what you do, but just so you are aware, not knowing what tools are at your disposal. Failing to plan means you're going to plan to fail.
For sure. And, as an agent, we pay for a lot of stuff that we do, right? Like it's kind of the nature of the business. And we could go buy a website and we could go buy a CRM system. We don't have to because the company, and the problem is we're never going to have the budget that a company our size or, any larger company would have to provide those things. And so as agents, sure, we could go out there and freelance and piece together something that was functional, but to have, when we've got a state-of-the-art website, state-of-the-art CRM is customer relationship management, if you're not familiar, the tool's there. And again, we've been playing with this kind of new level stuff just for the last, we've been playing with it forever, but the last couple of weeks, we've really leaned into it. It does some amazing things that we could certainly not afford to do on our own. And then, couple that with a social media footprint, just the sheer footprint of exposure. You know, we're both fairly high volume agents in the company, in the market, but you know, so we put content out there like this, and it gets a certain amount of exposure, but then the company shares it and adds it to their social media footprint, and the difference is night and day.
Sure.
And then the last thing I'll talk about on that is we recently opened up a marketing department, a full blown video production, tied in with social media stuff. That again, some local places, most local offices are just not going to be able to offer.
Yeah, I mean, your message is important. If people don't know, I remember one of the technological advancements that you and I, because we're always leaning into the tech stuff, when we found how to basically do some recurring posts in Facebook and you know, kind of different marketing, and someone came to you and said, "Oh man, that Johnny Kazemski guy's blowing." You remember that?
Clearly, I had a client come up to me and say, "Man, he kind of came out of nowhere," and I'm like, "I don't know where he's been here for 5 years. Like, you know, he's one of our top agents."
Yeah, but it's immediately, you know, humbling in the sense that what you see is all there is.
Sure.
And just one little change, one little thing about posting here and there and how to do it with more success changes everything. And this particular person's opinion was, "Oh man, he came out of nowhere."
That was the quote, was he came out of nowhere. And I mean, you were 10 years in the business at that point.
Yeah.
and not, you know, it's not like you weren't doing well, you were doing great.
But it's
but the mind share changed. Your market share was great, but the mind share changed when you were able to implement these tools.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of that stuff does come from the broker level, and then other things like media buys. You know, we as a company, and a lot of companies do this. We'll do a bulk, say, billboard purchase.
Sure.
That allows us to buy in at a lower rate than we could ever get on our own, and get much more exposure than we would have otherwise. So, I would want my brokerage to be offering those kinds of support things that we can then add our flavor to.
Sure.
Maybe run with in some other different directions even. But if you don't have that foundation there, it's really hard to do that.
Well, and it's so counterintuitive, and this isn't even really part of the you know, the most recent, the tools thing, but I've always said that the easiest thing that I can do to ensure my success is to help ensure my company's success, because while they thrive means that I thrive. Without the company, without, you know, the brokerage at that back level, so a brokerage that actually has their operation in order, that has all these tools, everything that we've gone through so far, certainly is, you know, something that should be attracting many people.
For sure. Last thing on our list is commission splits, and I would argue this is maybe the most misunderstood thing about our business from the inside. You know, talk about commission splits for a second.
Well, commission splits basically are just what your split is after your work is done, after you sell a home, help a buyer buy a home, whatever the you know, split would be. So if you have a commission of $10,000 and it's split 50-50, okay, you're going to go
with the brokerage, you mean?
With the brokerage,
right.
Correct. You as a agent would take home 5, and the brokerage would take home 5, which seems okay. Well, why would I give half of my money for this?
Sure.
And this is what you said about the most misunderstood. The brokerage is helping to, you know, I guess for my own seat, we have a team, you and I, that my commission split is with the team and goes towards funding our admin staff and you know, our own operating agreement. I can do 5 times as many deals with a 10% whatever, the amount of money that I put towards an admin staff. If it helps me, supplements me to do exponentially more deals, it's a no-brainer.
Sure.
Why would I go somewhere where a commission split might be higher, but I don't have the support staff? 90% commission splits are great. 90% of nothing is still nothing.
I had an agent quote that to me. Was a young guy who I'd interviewed and ended up going with a different brokerage. And I talked to him about a year after that, and just kind of gently said, you know, "Hey, how's it going?" He was like 19 years old, and he said, "Well, yeah, you know, I came here for the commission split." And I said, "Well, how's that working out?" He said, "Well, you know, 100% of nothing is nothing." It was a quote, direct quote. Yeah. And so I would suggest that you look at commission split the same way we advise our sellers to look at their sales price and the commission they pay us. So I'll have a seller that, you know, they're for sale by owner and they don't want to pay X percentage because they think they're going to lose money.
Sure.
Or they want to list with another broker who's 1 or 2% less. But ultimately, as a seller, all they care about is what are they taking home? What's going to be in your pocket when you walk away from the closing table?
Right.
And I believe, and it's part of my job as a salesperson to convince them of this, and I believe it's true, that listing with us, we're going to get you enough more out of your property that you're going to walk away with more money at the end of the day. So, for example, So let's say you have a property that you can sell for $100,000, and you're not going to pay commission, so you're going to walk away with 100 minus a few expenses. But I can get you 110 for it, and my commission is going to be $6,000. Well, you walked away with 104. So when it comes to commission splits at the brokerage, it's really the same question, isn't it? It doesn't really matter what the split is. What matters is how much going into my bank account at the end of the day.
Correct.
Right?
And yeah, it's just the survivability.
Right. So if you're in a brokerage with a giant footprint, with all the support staff, that ultimately you do more business because of it, the split might not be the same, but I'd rather pay, 70, 80, 90% of a large number than 100% of a very small number.
Yeah.
Or 0% of a very small number.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things that when I talk to especially new agents, because they want to get into this business and they want to thrive and they want, to reach the heights of the top producing agents in the Ohio Valley and look around at all the success. It's always, that's one of the biggest conversations that I have. And it's always about just me, the money. Mm-hmm. It goes missed so often that, those splits are great, but if you're not doing the volume to keep up with that level.
So I talked in a previous podcast about this business, I believe, requires a long view in order to be successful.
Sure.
And if you're just looking at how much you're going to make in the next couple weeks, next month, next couple months, that's tough, and you're going to struggle. Mm-hmm. If you can look long term, what's going to be for the year, the next 3, 5, 10 years.
Sure.
Then you start to see it differently. I think it's the same thing. And so on a short term basis, I can get all of or almost all of the commission on that one deal, or I can get a whole bunch of money off of 10 deals and ultimately make more money at the end of the day. And that's really what it's about, is getting paid for your work.
Sure. And the thing that even comes with that too is just the amount of volume that you do actually helps with your growth because of return business.
Of course.
And so it's not something that, again, it's great to have these types of commission splits and things that everyone wants to talk about, the biggest elephant in the room. But if you're doing 50, 60, upwards of 70 closings a year, what does your real estate career look like 5 years from now when those 60 people, on average, they need to sell within that time frame? You're going to have 30 listings coming back.
Yeah, I hit a milestone not long ago, last year I think, where I sold a house to a kid who was a baby when I sold his parents their house. And so I've been at it long enough now that I'm into my second generation of buyers. Yeah. You're exactly right about that. And so when you talk about long view, focusing on the commission split number is a very short view of this business. And every time I see somebody look at this business in a short-term view, they lose.
They're never around.
They're just not going to be that long. So look long-term, look for brokerage with a proven track record of success. The money takes care of itself. I want to be around successful people. And it's a famous quote, I forget who said this, but you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around.
That's good.
It's very good. Think back to some different points in your life when you were younger. The 5 people you spend most time. Yeah, that's probably kind of true. But when you surround yourself with success, you're gonna feel that success, I believe.
Yeah, very good words of wisdom.
Yeah,
as always.
Well,
anything else insightful that you want to dispense before we?
Well, so I'll add point number 6. And this is one of those little simple flow charts you see.
Yeah.
Is your brokerage you're considering Harvey Goodman? If yes, then good, keep going. If no, stop, go back to number 1 and ask again.
Pretty much.
I'm kidding.
No,
but we do love where we work. It's an absolute fantastic place to be. Support staff is amazing. And we didn't do this intending to make this a recruiting pitch for Harvey Goodman. But I think if we start talking about how to choose a brokerage, it's almost inevitable.
Well, precisely. I mean, and it's just something that it's like having a proud dad moment where it's so easy to brag about here. It really is. There's not much that I get to. I mean, on my daily, I tell people all the time when I'm in real estate and how busy it seems and everything else. I haven't worked a day in my life in the past 10 years. I haven't. I bust my my hump, and we
work very hard, but we love what we do.
Yeah, and there's a aspect to that though where, again, the culture that is under this roof is like no other that I've. You pointed out before that the companies that I always liken this, the companies that do have that kind of culture where you're afraid to report bad news, right? Well, seriously, and because no one likes to get bad news, but when you're afraid to report it, you kind of have to nuance around it, and then you don't give the whole truth. And when the whole truth doesn't exist, none of those totalitarian style places, they don't last long because they can't operate from a sense of where they have full understanding. Here, if I do something stupid, if I do something dumb, I'm not really afraid to be, okay, I did this. I don't like to admit it. And I know I'm going to get a little bit of, calling to the carpet. But at the end of the day, those people in that room, I know have my back when I leave.
I've told the story so many times, going back to Mrs. Brune, who, again, is just an icon around here. She was nearing the end of her career when I started. And I knew, and she was tough. I mean, she kind of had sort of a school marm way about her. Like, she would crack you on the knuckles if you made a mistake.
Sure.
One of her favorite things to say was, that may work somewhere else, but in this office, we don't do that. But I knew, and you just phrased it almost perfectly. I don't think we ever talked about this.
Sure.
But I knew that if I made a mistake and I go to Mrs. Brune and tell her about it, she'd let me have it. There's no wiggle room. But she would then turn around and pick up the phone and make the call she needed to and have my back 100%. Yeah. And that's exactly where I want to be. And so her legacy lives on for sure. And I would argue that Mary and Beth and the rest of the staff here absolutely are the same way. They will let you have it when you make a mistake, and then they'll have your back 100%.
Yeah, and we've both been there.
Once or twice.
All right. Well, I think that's enough for this podcast. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. We'll see you next week for the next topic. Have a great day.